Hello, my name is Lisa Greene, and I am the mom of two children with cystic fibrosis. Not children so much anymore, but young adults. My son Jacob is 19 and my daughter is 17. Did I say teenagers? How many of you here have a teenager at home? Raise your hand. Shall we have a moment of silence? Indeed. You know what I mean when I say I have lots of stories that I could share with you today about raising teenagers with CF. But the one I'd like to share with you is a story about my son Jacob, who has been in Boy Scouts since, Cub Scouts, since he was a Cub Scout at age 7. So a lot of people know that becoming an Eagle Scout is considered sort of that peak experience of scouting. But another very impactful experience for Scouts is attending what they call Philmont Scout Ranch. And as the website says, it's their premier high-adventure camp, challenging Scouts with more than 214 square miles of rugged northern New Mexico wilderness. Rugged is right. Desolate is right. Barren is right. There's no power, no ice, no water, no services, pretty much nothing. It's what you bring on your back. So imagine my concern one day when my son Jacob comes to me and says, "Hey Mom, guess what? Guess where we're going this summer for Boy Scouts?" "Where, Jake? Where are you going?" "We're going to Philmont Ranch, and we're going to go on a 110-mile hike for 11 days with only what we can carry on our back, and there's no food or water or anything. We have to carry it all, and I get to see dinosaur bones and an airplane wreck and everything. It's going to be so cool." Yeah. Inside, Mom, I'm going, "Oh, great. Oh, no. Helicopter is getting ready to take off for a flight. No, no, no." Say it isn't so, right? On the outside, of course, I'm like, "Well, Jake, that sounds really interesting. So what's your plan? How do you think you might be able to take care of your health in a situation like this?" Well, my son, Jacob, being a resourceful and industrious young man, he is, after all, a Boy Scout, and quite sure, I'm sure, anticipating my likely response, right, of like, no, and no, and no, right? He was already overcoming my objections. So he says, "Well, yes, I have thought about it, Mom. I have my portable nebulizer, and I have ice packs for my meds, and I can go every other day doing my Pulmozyme as long as I do my Hypercell every day, which don't need ice. Plus, I can bring my acapella, and I'm going to be exercising every day, so I'll get all of my airway clearance done that way." Ta-da, right? And I'm like, wow, all right, so you've really thought it through. You've really thought it through. So let's go talk to our CF team and see what they have to say. Now, of course, inside, what am I thinking? I hope they say no, right? Of course, yeah. I'm like, okay, yeah, let's go to the CF team. Of course they're going to say no, right? Now, I have to say, this CF team is amazing, Seattle Children's Hospital. And they've always been very, very supportive of things not quite like this, because this was new, but they've always been very supportive of figuring out summer camps and stuff. So I kind of figured if anyone would say yes, it's this team. But of course, you know, that mother inside of me was kind of hoping they'd say no. Because I'm afraid. I'm torn. I'm looking at this slide, going back a slide here. I mean, I'm thinking about all of these medications. I'm thinking like, my husband and I and Jake have worked so hard to keep his lung function high for all these years. And so what's going to happen if he comes back and his lung function is low and we can't regain it again? What happens if he picks up some strange bug out in some weird spot in who knows where and we can't eradicate it? I had all these fears just going through my head. And so we go to the CF clinic, and of course, you know, as I sort of expected, but hoped not, Dr. Gibson was excited for Jake, and he was supportive. "Jake, that sounds like a great experience. Wow, I wish I could go." But then one look at me told a different story, right? I mean, he saw the look on my face of probably terror. And so he addressed the elephant in the room. He just said, "Look, Jake, I know your mom is concerned about your health. And a trip like this is tough. It could be really challenging. It's going to be tough to keep up with your peers. It could be tough to keep up with your peers. It's tough conditions on the trail. There's high altitude. There's dust. There's dehydration issues. We have a lot to talk about, young man. And so we sat down, and Dr. Gibson probably spent almost an hour with us. And I tried my best to be the fly on the wall, not saying a word. Not always easy, but I really tried. And the two of them really worked out a modified treatment plan. They talked about, the risks. I mean, Dr. Gibson went through all the risks with my son, and me, of course, and talked about how to overcome them, what to do, with dehydration and all that, so how we could mitigate it. So it was really about education, and I was just really grateful for that support. And I started to feel a little bit comforted, like, okay, we can do this. This is reasonable. And we have the support of the team. So Jake went to work making it happen. And luckily, one other thing that helped me feel better about this is that my husband Carl was going to go with him, because my husband was an assistant troop leader. So he was also invited, and he was able to get the time off work and make it happen. And so Jake and Carl started training. They were putting heavy books in their backpack and going up and down the hills and hiking. And they were hiking in the mountains of Washington to get trained and just get ready, which was great for Jake's lungs, of course. I mean, lots of great exercise there. And then, of course, I wanted to keep Jake really vested in this process. And so he was in charge of figuring out how he'd keep his ice cold and how he'd get his battery packs charged. And so he started doing some research, and he came back with some bad news. He was like, Mom, they don't have electricity and they don't have ice. Right? So it's like, oh, wow, that could be a showstopper. So we sat down together with the phone on the speakerphone, and we called Philmont Ranch and started really digging. And so it turned out that the route that he was going on, they have a lot of different routes. The route that they would be on did have some little service huts that would have some ice and some power available. And so they said, yeah, we can make this work. We can accommodate. We do have people coming here with medical needs, and so, we can do this. So, we're starting to feel more hopeful. My inner helicopter parent was starting to come in for a landing. Not completely, but, I felt like we were at least putting together a good plan, and we were trying to fill all the gaps in where we could. So the big day arrives. This is actually a picture of base camp. The big day arrives. Jake went to the CF clinic. They cleared him to go. They said, you're looking good, young man. Have a good time. And my husband and Jacob were so excited. I mean, they were just bouncing off the walls. And I was trying to be too, but it was really hard for me because I was really afraid. I was thinking, and I was trying not to. I was doing my best not to think bad things, but I'm like, wow, what if something happens to him? What if a donkey kicks him over a cliff? It wasn't just the CF stuff, right? And so, all the things that could happen, and so, but, I really wanted to experience the joy and be really supportive. And so I put on my big girl pants and my happy mommy face and said, you know what, Jake, you're going to have a great time. And Carl and go forth and conquer your 110 miles of high wilderness desert. Good luck to you. So 11 days, no contact. It seemed like forever. And of course, all the what ifs were running through my mind, but I did my best to just let it go and just have faith in knowing that we'd prepared, we'd done what we can, we were ready for this, and just hoping and praying they were having a good time on the trail. And so finally, what seemed like forever, I got the call. 11 days. I got the call from Carl. They had just came in. 11 days, no showers. So he hadn't even taken a shower yet, which is remarkable, right? He called me first thing and said, we're good. We had a great time. We stink. Be glad you're not here, because it's really bad. Because they can't even use deodorant, by the way, because it attracts bears. No deodorant, no showers for 11 days. So they threw the sleeping bags away. They didn't even keep them. There was a big dumpster there where all the sleeping bags were going. But the bottom line is they had a great time. And Jake was healthy. He didn't suffer any ill health effects. They did run out of ice and their batteries. One of the huts wasn't available toward the end, so there was about 3 or 4 days with no breathing treatments. And It's unfortunate, but Jake did not suffer any ill effects from that. And they had a great time. It all worked out. And most importantly, Jacob had the trip of a lifetime. He had the trip of a lifetime with his father, with the other boys who he bonded with, the other dads who were amazing mentors for him. He learned about himself and his own limitations. He learned that when he was a little bit tired or needed to do breathing treatments, he needed to set boundaries around what he could do. When the other boys were going to go off on a little special trail walk, Jake was like, you know what? I need to do my breathing treatments. I'll catch up with you on the next one. I was really proud of him for doing that. He learned how to push his own limits and what he could and couldn't do. He sat on a plateau with lightning all around him, and he saw a view of the stars that few will ever see. He got to see his dad get a stubborn mule to go that no one else could get to go. And they were working at it for like a couple hours, getting really frustrated. And if the mule doesn't go, you can't go. And they're on a pretty strict time schedule, right? And so he got to see his dad, be a leader and figure it out and learn from his dad and all those amazing experiences as a father and a son. Jacob got to be a man. He got to be normal. He got to be free. He got to live. This is the part of Jake that his care team doesn't get to see. I don't even think they've seen these pictures. Maybe I should show them to them. I'm really grateful to them. But they understood that this was important, even though they don't get to see this part of his life in the detail that I'm even showing with you. They understand that it matters. That it matters how our children live our lives, that the psychosocial aspect of living with CF is every bit as important as the health aspect. Jacob created memories with his dad, who, less than 2 years later, would pass away unexpectedly of a heart attack. Oddly enough, it was Carl that had a ticking time bomb in his chest. If only we had known. But yet, as heartbreaking as that is, and that grief journey that we've been walking, it makes this experience more meaningful, more precious, more important, and more impactful. Those moments will never be recovered. My son can never go on another camp out with his father. So I'm so, so grateful that I said, and his dad said, and our CF team said, yes, you can. What's your plan? Yes, you can. What's your plan? Let's make that happen. Our CF team has taught my husband and I, we have a shared belief that the quality of life must be balanced with the burden of care. Otherwise, what's the point? At the end of the day, as at the end of all of our lives, all we really have is our memories. We have the memories, the experiences, the joy, and the love that we have shared with each other as families and colleagues and even as a community. I'm forever grateful to Dr. Gibson and our CF team for their care, who recognize that my kids are more than just CF, by helping me and my husband learn to say yes. Yes, you can. What's your plan? By helping to tame my inner helicopter. I'm still a work in process, by the way, so I'm still working on it, but just helping me feel more comfortable. And fast forward to today, Jacob is a freshman in college at Stanford University, which is no small feat, as you know, for a person with CF and the work that takes. Thank you. My daughter Casey is also thriving. She's doing a dual enrollment program it's like college, high school combined. So she actually started college about a week before my son. She got to tease him, Nanner, I'm younger than you and I'm in college first. So they kind of have a fun little competition going there, a little friendly competition. As some of you know, I travel around the country doing public speaking, teaching families about parenting children with health issues. I've written about 4 books on the topic. And even with all of this expertise in my brain, and the knowledge really helps, I do my best to live what I teach, it still is what's in our heart. As moms and dads, we love our kids, and it's hard, this letting go thing, whether we're letting go and they're going off to kindergarten, or we're letting them go and they're going off to their first summer camp, or we're letting go and they're going off to college to be in a dorm with a bunch of kids. It's this process of letting go. letting go, growing up, learning. And it's an evolution in parenting for me. It's an evolution in growing up for my kids and for our CF team as they learn to relate to us in different ways, where they're talking to my kids directly and I leave the room and let them talk with my kids directly so that they are empowered to do this for themselves as they grow up. And so we're all growing and learning and becoming and living. And we're focusing on making every moment matter, because it does. It does matter. And I'm grateful to my CF team and the CF Foundation for giving us hope and the tools for adding more tomorrows together. Thank you.
Lisa, thank you for sharing that story. As you heard from Lisa, for people with CF and their families, managing CF in life is really a balancing act. There are a lot of moving parts. While living with CF is different for everyone, there are some common threads. We know that people with CF do best, one, when they share. When they receive highly individualized treatment, when they can balance treatments with daily life, and when their care plans address the whole person, physical, mental, and social aspects. This image shows that core center circle. You might imagine Lisa and her kids, her family, and then the supporting structure around it, and we'll talk a little bit about that. When care teams, family caregivers, members of the local and virtual community, such as volunteers, come together with people with CF, it can make balancing life with this disease a little bit easier. Working together means coordinating care across the multiple specialties within the CF care team and beyond sometimes. Sharing information to drive improvements for everyone, and belonging to a supportive community like all of us gathered here today and those online. The model that we'll be talking about is aspirational for some. So I want you to keep that in mind. It's a vision, something for us as a community to work towards. And so we put it out there with that caveat. Cindy and I will be going through these 4 arms of coordinating, empowering, improving, and belonging, and talking about the various elements that make up that arm. The first is coordinating personal care. As you know, CF is a complex chronic disease and it affects multiple organs. And the treatment plan is very demanding. There's no one size fits all. Treatments must be tailored to that individual, their health status, and their goals. In partnership with patients and families, the highly trained team of specialists on the care team apply the latest medical evidence and publish guidelines to meet their patients' unique circumstances, resulting, we hope, in care that's complete, coordinated, personalized, and proactive. I'll go through some of the programs that support this coordinating personalized care. There's a center accreditation process that you may not be familiar with. We don't talk about this much. It's more a professional accountability. We have a center committee comprised of about a dozen pediatric program directors and a dozen adult program directors. They conduct site visits on behalf of the foundation, go from stem to stern, looking at facilities, labs, meeting with the team, the director, the nurse coordinator, and institutional leaders. Afterwards, they come back and the center committee meets and reviews all the findings. And then we provide a critique back to the care center. And if there are issues, we ask them to respond. This program, this accreditation program, has been in place for decades, and I've seen it work over and over again, mainly to hold the institution. The care teams typically, not always, but typically are doing a great job and working hard, but sometimes the institutions aren't providing the support that they need. You all know about the multidisciplinary care teams. The nurse, the physician, dietitian, respiratory therapist, social worker, sometimes pharmacist, more recently mental health coordinators, physical therapist. The needs evolve and the care team needs to evolve. Additional specialists, gastroenterologists and endocrinologists, often not a part of the CF care team. ENT docs, sometimes high-risk OBs for women with CF. Clinical practice guidelines, we bring experts together. We always include an adult with CF and a parent of a child with CF because that perspective is very important to have at the table. They review all the literature. They bring their clinical expertise, the expertise from individuals with CF and parents, and they craft guidelines, recommendations. And we use a rigorous methodology so that we can publish these in the peer-reviewed literature, and we pay the open source fee so they're available to everyone around the world. And we publish executive summaries on our website. If you haven't looked on our website, Google or use the search function on our website to get to the guidelines. You can go through all the guidelines that we've published and see the executive summaries. And then we work on recruitment of the next generation. A lot of us are getting gray hair or thin hair. We need to be replaced. So we're recruiting younger docs, younger nurses. We're recruiting particularly adult care docs, endocrinologists, gastroenterologists, more pulmonologists. We recruit them by providing what we refer to as sort of catalyst grants to bring them in for 2 or 3 years, partially offset their salaries. And then once they're in the clinic and they serve the patient population, they're hooked. And we retain almost all of them. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to the next supporting arm, and that's empowering the individual.
Thanks, Bruce. So empowering the individual speaks to how can we support individuals with CF and families to play that very important active role in care, which is so critical. And this really requires the fact of building this trust-based relationship with the care team. Because when those type of relationships exist, then what can happen is you can bring your, as Elisa's son illustrated that story, you can bring your concerns, your hopes, your goals, and have a really deep discussion. And your care team recognizes and values and respects and encourages those contributions. Those type of relationships grow into partnerships where Lisa's story is possible for her son to reach his goals as well as while maintaining his health. And so the foundation has many initiatives that have been underway and are currently underway to support empowering all of you and those of you online. One of them is the long-time educational resources, because self-care begins when you have knowledge. Again, as Dr. Gibson illustrated in Lisa's story, with making sure that Jacob was armed with the information he needed before he went on this arduous trek. And then if you went to cff.org recently, you'd see that we have a wealth of resources available, as well as talking to your care teams as well. Bruce had mentioned this morning and then just recently about the robust mental health initiative that we have started a few years ago, and the importance of bringing in a mental health coordinator into the care teams, giving resources, a committee, as well as guidelines, really supporting this full force. Partnerships for Sustaining Daily Care is an initiative that's bringing the community together to look for new knowledge and resources that can help people be even more successful with managing these multiple therapies on a daily basis. our Patient and Family Advisory Board, here's an opportunity, if you've not already joined one, to join one. Have your voice heard, to get your thoughts to improve care at your center, perhaps. If you have one, I encourage you to join one. If you don't, maybe you want to talk to your care team and get one organized. The foundation provides a seed grant for these Patient and Family Advisory Boards so that you could start one. Then there's the Experience of Care survey. Now, not every center has the ability to have this right now, but for those that do, here's a way in which you can help your center, give your thoughts, your perspectives, so the center and you can work on improving the care at that center. And if they don't have Experience of Care right now, you should feel free to share your perspective with your team. So again, that together you can improve care at that center. And the CF Learning Network, which Bruce spoke about this morning at his talk, I wanted to call out that there's a group called the Community Innovators. And I know Pam Mertz is not at the session now. She was before. She's been leading that this last year. And this is a group of individuals with CF and parents and families that get together, and they're working with these care teams that are in the Learning Network. And they're improving care not only for themselves at their center as well, but across the entire network. So if you're interested, I encourage you to get involved in that way. I'll turn it over to Bruce for sharing data to improve health.
My favorite part. I love the data. In God we trust, all others bring data. It's my motto. This part is sort of complements some of the other arms very nicely. And care plans, they change over time as circumstances change. And that's based on test results and change in symptoms, in mood and appetite and energy level. And that's information that you share with your care teams, obviously, to help them craft the right plan. And then the data, we use it in a multitude of ways, including feedback to the care centers so they can identify opportunities to improve. That's registry data and the Experience of Care survey data that Cindy mentioned. We aggregate all that data and feed it back to the care center so they can see where are they weak and where can they improve. I could go on and on about the registry. How much time do we have? Okay, I've got my time limit. I'm gonna hustle through the registry. But seriously, this is one of the crown jewels of our community, and I know many of you have authorized the sharing of your medical data, and we put it to good use. The registry data also is supportive of clinical trials. That's how we power the studies. How many patients do we need for that study? The feasibility of the study. Are there enough that meet that criteria within the registry? So it's very important. We bring teams together in collaboratives, learning and leadership collaboratives. This is in collaboration with our colleagues at Dartmouth. We teach them how to standardize and improve their care processes, working towards a goal. And this is the way we get the QI methodology into the community. We require that they bring a parent or a patient that participates virtually to bring that voice in. And we've talked about learning networks. I talked about the pilot learning network this morning. We also have dinosaur technology to connect, for example, dietitians. We have listservs that they can connect. If they have an issue they want others around the country to comment on, they can get that input. And then the other big learning network is the biggest CF conference in the world, the North American CF Conference. About 5,000 people, scientists, clinicians, all coming together, sharing the latest advances in innovations in care and in science. With that, I'm going to turn it to Cindy to talk about belonging to the community.
Belonging to the community is all of you and all of you online. We know that managing cystic fibrosis is 24/7. It does include going to clinic, and it does include doing multiple therapies every day, but it includes so much more. And so the importance of having a community that's informed and empathetic is so important. It helps people sustain that care each day. It helps give a powerful voice so that folks can advocate for access to that care and to these treatments. And as a community, when we come together as researchers, clinicians, individuals with CF and families and the foundation, we really then have the ability to share experiences with one another, different perspectives, share our understandings, and really make sure that no one in our community feels alone. And so many of the programs you heard this morning through Dr. Borowitz are supporting belonging to the community. So I'll just run through a few. CF Cares, which was spoken about, this is a new program through the chapters, which is really offering an opportunity for families and friends of those living with CF to come together and connect at a local level. Community partnerships with the virtual events, with the Peer Connect and soon-to-be Family Connect, and the research and community voice groups that offer valuable input and participation in many things that are happening across our network. Advocacy and access. Advocacy this past Thursday, where many of you were part of that powerful group of Marching on the Hill. And then for access, our compass, are very important, helping people navigate through the challenges with healthcare, especially today. Our volunteers and donors, all of you here and online, this wonderful conference that brings us together as a community that really gets it. We can share together. And through our CF community blog and through our social media, whether that be Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and I'm sure there's many more, that we have this opportunity to share with one another. These platforms which really help connect us to people who get us. And so, as I think you would say, together is the way forward. And this care model, this approach to care, we see that there's the coordinating care, making sure that people are empowered, improving care both at the individual and also at the population level, and belonging as a community. All are interconnected, all to support the partnership that exists between you and your care teams, with the foundation wrapping around multiple programs to support this partnership. And sometimes this model, we've had a hard time kind of teasing it out, but we hope we've teased out the very important elements. But it can be very dynamic and very much sometimes messy. But it's one that's working to live and support wellness for mental health, wellness, physical health, and our social health as a community. And so at this point, we're going to pause. I think we may have some questions online, and we'd love to enter into discussion and see if this resonates with you and what questions you might have for Lisa, Bruce, or myself. No questions online. Okay. Yes? Patient Family Advisory Boards?
Is there not a way to make having that standard be part of the accreditation process rather than pushing back on to patients to come and ask for it?
That's a good question. So the question is whether or not patient family advisory boards could be part of really a standard for accreditation rather than having patients and families sort of ask for it. Did I get that correct? Okay. You want to?
It's a good question. It is, and it's something I'll bring to the center committee. We really stand by. I mean, we're there, we're nagging, we're pushing, but we'll bring it to them and see if they agree with that. It makes some sense to me, and we want, for example, that experience of care survey information to go to the Patient Family Advisory Board as well as the clinicians, because we want to drive them to work together to improve. Good question.
On those same lines, you mentioned seed grants to get the advisory committees. Can you describe that process a little bit?
Yes, we provide all of our accredited care centers some support, and it's mostly the power of that money is we allow flexibility. So if they need, for example, the institution only doesn't supply a social worker, they can use it to get social worker. But in this most recent year, we put a line item in there of a few thousand. I don't recall the exact amount, but it's specifically to support Patient Family Advisory Board. So if you go back to your program director or your team, you can ask them about that if they don't have a family counsel, and they can use that support if you need it for the logistics of a meeting or provide some snacks or food for a meeting or whatever you need. That's the purpose of that funding. John?
Is that line item for the chapter offices or for the facility?
It's the care centers.
Care centers, that's what I thought. Okay, that's good to know.
Does this model make sense to you all? Does it fit? It's a question way in the back. It's a good question. Everybody hear that about the patient? I think what you're experiencing is not unusual. What we've seen is it's up and down, and it's in part determined by the energy and the leadership and the support of the care team. I think it's really helpful if a social worker or a nurse or a physician can show up there. That supportive piece, I think, goes a long way. We do provide, there are resources for how to develop a patient family advisory board and how to sustain it. And I'll see if Lisa and Cindy want to comment. I don't want to dominate the podium here, but what you're experiencing is not unusual. And I think you just have to keep at it and really try to reach out to the care team and see if they can help you. Okay. This is a tough question. What is the next step in ensuring that each CF patient receives the absolute best possible care, and how can we achieve it? Wow, you got me sweating. That's a tough question. Let me think about that. Cindy, what comes to your mind? Next. I think the partnership piece is pretty powerful. It's kind of, I said unleashing the fury. It's unleashing the controlled fury, right? You don't want to wreck things in the process, but the energy, the knowledge, the wisdom, the passion is there. And I'll say as data geek, supported by the right data at the right place at the right time to kind of help channel things in the right direction. I don't know if that's helpful. I'm not sure who asked that. Was that an online question? Wow. Don't take any more questions from that person. That one's too hard.
I had another idea / question. I just want to float it out there for you to think about. My CF son, very lucky. He was very good shape, and he's was a D1 athlete in college, and he got to have the benefit of that sort of really first-class coaching. And I don't know how I have kids who are athletic, but because I'm the one that tripped that everyone saw earlier. But I saw the benefit of him being coached, and I couldn't help but think that it would be really helpful for CF moms to get that, or dads as well. And I know that the first step that the foundation has sort of taken is to have this mentoring thing, but I would just encourage you to think outside of the other moms, because at the time that I could mentor somebody else, my kid is probably the sickest, and I may not be the best person for them to talk to, and it may not be something I really want to focus my time on. But there are people who are excellent coaches. I've been to coaching myself in my job, and it would just be such a great model for us to think about, to help people figure out how to make all this work, because it's not easy. It's hard. Anyway, thank you for listening.
Well, I just wanted to say, as Drucy ended today, if you want to send her an email, she's looking for great ideas. In fact, they were looking at impact grants that are due March 31st. So I think that's a great idea. We'll certainly pass it along as well. And I think we are 5:03. I don't see Chris or anybody, but we are.